You're listening to Grown and Growing with Sonia Hamlin. What's up, y'all? I'm so glad you joined us for another episode of the Grown and Growing podcast. My guest this week is Chianti Lomax. Chianti is a lot of things. She has a dynamic, bubbly personality, and she is also the author of the new book called Evolving While Black: The Ultimate Guide to Happiness and Transformation on Your Own Terms. I love this book. Before I interviewed Chianti, a few weeks before we actually had our conversation, I was sent a PDF of this book. And, I read it because I want us to have a good conversation, but you never quite know what to expect. Well, I loved it. A few weeks later, when the book came out, I spent my own money to go to Barnes and Noble and Amazon. I actually bought 2 copies and got the book. And the reason I love the book is because Chianti is a great storyteller. She's so relatable in her stories, and she just has a fun way of talking about a lot of different things. And then at the end of each chapter, or woven through the chapters, are very specific activities, journal prompts that really drive home exactly what she is trying to teach you in the pages before. She does such a great job. It's so relatable. I was so happy to speak with her because I couldn't wait to tell her how much I enjoyed the book and what a great job that she's done. But in our conversation, we spent a lot of time talking about happiness. Happiness, I feel like it's one of those throwaway words, and people are like, "Are you happy?" Yeah, I'm happy. But it is complicated. It is elusive. It is, ever changing. And, in some way or another, some people are always in pursuit of it. And so we have this really great conversation about what it takes to be happy, which is what the focus of her book is. And it's an amazing conversation that I really enjoyed, and I hope you will too. So a little bit about Chianti. She is an international speaker, certified mindset coach, leadership trainer who thrives at the intersection of mindfulness, technology, and transformative coaching. So she was a coach for executives at Fortune 500 companies. Then she started coaching individuals, and now she's an author as well. She's also a registered yoga instructor and something called a positive psychology practitioner, which is something we get into in the episode. We talk a little bit about what that is. Chianti teaches doable habit changes that help increase well-being and to elevate our overall human experience. If there isn't a time for this topic, I think now is the time. There's so much going on in the world. I think if you're not thinking about what it takes to be happy, if you're not trying to find a little bit of happiness in your day every day, this is a conversation for you because it's needed. So without further ado, let's get into this topic. Welcome to the podcast, Chianti. How are you?
I am well. Thanks for having me, Sonia. How are you?
I'm excited. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a couple of weeks now because you have just put a baby out into the world. Is this your first book?
I am a first-time author. Aww. First time.
You wrote this amazing book, and we're going to talk about it. I'm not just saying, the book is called Evolving While Black: The Ultimate Guide to Happiness and Transformation on Your Own Terms.
Yes.
So I was lucky enough that you sent me an advanced PDF copy. Mm-hmm. And, I was spending time reading it on my computer, and I was like, oh my God, this is so good. This is so good. And when it came out, I was like, you know what? I need the book. I need the actual book. And the reason I like it so much is because you've done a really masterful job at, telling relatable stories. Mm-hmm. Weaving in education. It's not like you browbeat it. It's woven in very nicely. And then what I really love about it is that you have these journal prompts, challenges at the end of each chapter. I love it. So this is not a book that you will like speed read through just
No.
to get to the end. Like you really need to take some time with it and sit with it and write in it and underline. And that's what I really love. This is I used to be, I'm an avid reader. I've always loved to read.
Mhm.
And in the last few years, I switched to audiobooks because it's just easier for my life.
Yeah,
And I know you have an audiobook
I
version of
do. I
this.
did it. I recorded an audio version.
Amazing.
Yeah.
But I really wanted to get the physical copy when I have not had a physical copy of anything in a very long time.
Yeah.
So to me, that's very telling in the quality of the work. And what you're discussing is so important. So congratulations. I wanted to give you those props because you did amazing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Long road, but very well, like very worth it. So it's worth it. It was definitely worth it.
Good. So why did you want to name it Evolving While Black? What does that title mean to you? Why did you, I know authors spend a lot of time thinking about what to call their books. Why did you settle on Evolving While Black?
Well, for me, evolving to me just basically mean consistently growing.
Mm-hmm.
So growth is a very consistent and just present character in my life's journey. Like I value growth, I value learning. I'm always learning. And as I learn, I teach. So I was just like, what better way to encompass the way I live my life and how I coach women than to talk about doing it as a Black woman. Mm-hmm. So I felt like there's a distinction in how we grow as Black people because as Black people, there are very present threats to us living, right? To being, to showing up in this world. And so not only did I want to talk about what that feels like, but also like, how do we, like in the face of systemic racism, in the face of patriarchy, like in the face of all these things that were created to take us down, how do we create these little pockets of joy, of happiness, and of light, and like grow anyway? Mm-hmm. So I really landed on that title because I felt like it encompassed everything that I wanted to say. It's like, yes, this is a book about personal growth, about happiness and transformation. But guess what? I'm a Black woman. And so this is going to be a little tricky. You know? It is. It's a little different.
Yeah, growth for us. I think that, that sentiment is in our DNA. Like, I feel like Black people, I have to joke, like we can joke about anything. I don't care how serious it is.
Everything. Yes.
We gonna get a joke. We gonna get the jokes off. We gonna be on the internet. And I think that is just, a testament to how resilient we are as people. Yeah. But it also doesn't get away from that. We definitely have so much trauma, so much, in our history. Yeah. But just living in this world is just very hard. It's very hard. Yeah. And you focus a lot of the book. And I think I want to spend a little bit of time here in, talking about happiness. Why did you want to write a book that focused, on this? And what can women get out of this book?
So I've been coaching Black women specifically since 2015. Mm-hmm. And when you ask us, a lot of us, what we want to be, it literally comes down to, I just want to be happy. And happiness looks different for everyone, which is why I wanted to do a deep dive into, well, what does that mean on my own terms, which is the second part of the title. It's like, yes, happiness, but what does it look like for me in my world? And the life that I live and all the hats that I wear and the dynamics that I wear. So it was really important for me to focus on happiness in that way. And then how I approach happiness is a lot different from most people talk about when most people talk about it. So when most people talk about happiness, they're like this intangible thing that is kind of about rainbows and unicorns and whatever those things are. But I'm like, no, we can make this tangible for you, and you can create ways of being that will allow you to feel this thing more consistently.
It's interesting because happiness is one of those emotions that seems fleeting. Like when you talk about the pursuit of happiness, like you're literally trying to run after it and grab
Yeah.
it. And it seems elusive. Like sometimes the thing that makes you happy doesn't always make you happy. And you kind of touch on that in the book, the elusiveness. So what do people normally get wrong about happiness?
Good. So a lot. And the thing is, the one thing I wanted to make sure I did in this book was like come from a place of like, girl, I am sitting here with you talking about this. I'm not looking down at you because I've been there and I am consistently working on this journey, right? So I think a lot of times, even personally, and I talk about this in the book, like I think people believe that you can catch happiness through these external things that are just going to make your life perfect. So one of the things people believe is, oh, I will be happy, especially for women, once I get my spouse.
Yes.
Right. Once I get married, it's going to put everything is going to come together and my life will be perfect. And it's like, yeah, but research shows that that may bring you happiness, but only for 2 years, like a short period of time.
Right.
People say things like, oh, I'll be happy when I have all of this money and I can pay all my bills and I have access, all this abundance of money. And it's like, yes, and for a short time, because there's a lot of people with money who aren't happy. And the thing that I wanted to share that most people don't know about is this concept of a happiness set point, or they call it the hedonic treadmill, which means like we all have a set point for happiness. And it can spike up or spike down, but you will always go back to that set point, which is why that's why it feels fleeting, because if you focus only on the external things that bring you happiness and joy, those things are going to only make you happy temporarily. But if you focus more on the internal things that bring you joy, like what energizes you, what makes you feel calm, or what helps you be more mindful, you'll feel it in a more meaningful way.
That's interesting, because that was one of the interesting points about the book, that there's this set point. And so I wonder, is everybody's set point, is your set point is specific to you? Do you ever change it? Can you ever lift it to be higher or different? Or do you always come back to the same set point and you're just finding different things to fill you up or to take you, at different levels? Does that make sense? Am I making sense?
No, it does make sense. And the short answer is, because there's the nerdy answer, right? The short answer is yes, you can move it up and down by doing certain things, which is why I focus so much on intentional activity, which is why I focus so much on creating like a long list of things that bring me joy. So at any moment when that happiness goes back down, I can push it back up by taking a walk, by hanging out with friends, by doing this thing. But you can boost it. But from what I remember in my research, because it's been a while, it does go back to the original, but you can boost it.
Yeah, and I like that the way you're describing it is like you have to be intentional about knowing exactly what makes you happy and going and being able to have a toolkit almost, which is what I like about the book, because you force people to, not force, but you guide people to, sit down and really think about those things.
Yeah. What was most intriguing to me, whenever I talk about happiness, the thing I love to talk about is the happiness pie. And
I have a question about that. Yes.
Yeah. And so to be truly, truly honest with you, the happiness pie is controversial in the positive psychology space, because different researchers have their own beliefs on like how the percentages shake out. But what's important to know is, yes, the percentages, depending on your school of thought, may change. The point is, there is a huge percentage of your happiness that you do have control over. So that intentional activity that you mentioned. So the Sonja Lyubomirsky happiness pie, she talks about, okay, 50% of our happiness is derived from genetics. So our parents. And I make a joke in the book about, they be like, how Black people are like, well, you got that from your daddy's side, or you got this from your mom's side. So, but it's literally the truth. Like literally your 50% of it, according to Sonja Lyubomirsky, comes from genetics. And then it's like, then there's 40% of it that is that intentional activity that we just talked about, where you can do the things to add to your happiness. And honestly, it's really called the life satisfaction pie, because it's about how you feel well-rounded and satisfied in life. So percent of your life satisfaction is intentional activity. And then only 10% is circumstance. Right. And the reason why that's important is because it goes back to those myths about happiness. I'll be happy when insert circumstance, which is why we have to rewire how we think about it. It's like, no, what can I do intentionally to bring more well-being, to bring more satisfaction in my life? Yes, the circumstances are real, but in terms of your happiness and well-being, it's only derived from 10% of that.
Yeah. I think what makes it interesting when you think, first of all, with the happiness pie, I was very shocked, number one, that genetics would be so high. I'm like, what? That's shocking, but also that circumstances would be so low, right? And there's this thing that, the biggest part, a big portion of that is what you do in your life to bring your own happiness. So I was like, oh, I mean, and if you, are somebody who is plagued by, things happening to you, I feel like that can give you some hope that, yes.
That's exactly what it did for me. So I tell people the reason why I get excited about it is because of my background and where I come from. It's like the mindset was always struggle and woe is me. And these people, the people don't want us to be great. They don't want us to, they don't want us to, but it's like, yes. And you also can do these things for yourself to make you feel better, to increase your well-being in the face of all those things. Those things are never going anywhere. If you waiting for racism to leave, if you waiting for bigotry to leave, you're gonna be waiting for a long time. So what do you have control over? And that's what happiness pie kind of points to, is like, we still have this 40% within our power. And to me, that's empowering. Like, I feel like that moved me out of victim mindset and made me feel like, oh, I have control over how I want to feel in life, how I show up to my friends and show up for myself. And I think that's just a powerful thing for all women to know, that I have this power.
Yes, absolutely. And one of the other things that really resonated with me in the book, particularly at the age I am now, right?
Yeah.
Is the self-awareness part of it. Because when you talk about the fact that happiness is about intentionality and going after, what the things that make you happy, the pause that I get, and even this past weekend, I was thinking, it's like, what makes you happy, right? And I think at this age that I am now, I'm raising 2 kids, I got a job, I got, there's just a lot happening, and I am a lot to a lot of people, right? I give myself to a lot of people. And I told my friend, I was like, I don't even know. I'm not even know if I'm sure about what I'm happy about, because it may have changed. I don't know. I've never checked in with myself to see if the things that used to make me happy or that people say should make me happy actually make me happy. So do you find that a lot with your clients and women you work with?
100%. And my small group coach what's interesting is a lot of my clients are married, and I feel like the people that come to me have reached that point in life where they're like, I've been mommy for so long that I don't even know who I am anymore. Or I've been wife for so long that I don't even know who I am anymore. So I really want to find that out. And so that's why self-awareness is where I always start with, even with my coaching program. So literally this book is my coaching methodology with some personal stories so that y'all know I've been there.
Right.
You know what I mean? But we always start with self-awareness, because if you don't know who you are, how are you going to know what makes you happy?
Yeah.
And the things that might have made us happy in our 20s, it ain't the same in 40. It's like, it's really different. And sometimes we might be contributing to the things that are decreasing our happiness and well-being, like some of our own behaviors, some of the things that we're doing, some of the boundaries that we haven't set in place might be contributing to us not feeling as joyful or feeling stressed out or anxious. And so that self-awareness piece is huge, and it's the first stop on this journey. It's so important.
And I'm glad you talked about not just the things that make you happy, right? Like, oh, massages make me happy, or bubble bath, I love it. That all makes me happy, but also the things that are keeping you from happiness that you can control. Like, I don't know if people think about it like that. Like, you're still trying to find what makes you happy, but yet you still have all these things pulling you back down.
Yeah. And and the funny thing is, I tell people, I talk about happiness, but that's like the candy. And when I get you in here, we're going to work on your boundaries. We're going to work on your mindset. We're going to work on your behaviors, your habits, your goals, because those are the things that will create the whole life. Because happiness is important, yes, but it's really about creating a whole life that you can be proud of, that doesn't drain you and that energizes you, so that you could show up better in the different hats and roles that you wear.
So do you find do you often work with, so I'm 46, I was about to say 45, I'm 46 now. Do you find that women who are my age, do you find that we have it's harder to change our mindset? Do you find that we are stubborn about it, are more hardened in how we think? How do you go about helping people change their mind?
Yeah, I find that it's not just women in your mid 40s. I think it's women who are a particular personality type.
Which is
type A, you know the things, you're in charge, you run the house, you run the things. And it's only because we just haven't taken time to slow down. Right. So what I usually do is I take them through this growth mindset, fixed mindset exercise. And I always use myself as an example, because I find that when I use myself as an example, people can see themselves and they're like, girl, that's me. So it literally helps them to take off the mask immediately. So my intention is always, how do I reach you so that I can take the mask off first? And we can have a real conversation about what's going on in your head. Right. So we often start with, what are areas in your life? And I break it down in 5 different areas of well-being. So I do physical well-being, social well-being, financial well-being, community well-being, and career well-being. And so let's say we start with financial well-being, because I always start there, because money.
Right.
So I'll say things like, what are your current mindsets around money? And I'm like, I'm gonna tell y'all the truth. For me, I used to believe I know how to make, I just wasn't good at managing it. I'm like, but my mindset was, I'm not good at managing money, because I was never taught what to do beyond getting the good job. I was taught to get the good job, right? But what happens after that, right? And so because I had that belief, and I literally walked them through this illustration, because I had this belief of, I'm just not good with money, my actions were influenced by that belief. And so that's how I live my life, through this belief of, I'm just not good with money. And guess what happened? I just never I didn't get good with money. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So we talk about self-fulfilling prophecy, and that allows me to hold up a mirror first, and them to create some awareness around, oh shoot, maybe I might have some issues with this area too. Or we go through each area, we go through each well-being area, and I give an example, and people are able to say, oh, wait, I might have a fixed mindset around this thing. And the one thing that I like to clarify to people is, you don't either have a growth mindset, which means I can learn to do it, or a fixed mindset, which means I'm just not good at it.
Right.
Have a fixed mindset in one of the areas of well-being. So social well-being, I am set. I can build relationships. I love the people, right? But my illustration is, maybe my fixed mindset was just financial, and that's the one where I would just need to, okay, well, if that mindset is not suiting me and it's not doing well for me, how do I talk back to it and change it so that I could change the behaviors of what's happening in my life?
Right.
So that looks like, okay, I didn't learn how to manage money, but someone can teach me. I have the resources to hire someone to help. So I hired a finance coach. And then guess what? She taught me how to get good with money. And then that influenced my behaviors. And I stopped going to Starbucks all the time and started making my coffee at home. And I felt better about managing my money, which is a very simple, basic example. But literally, I just walk them through each area of well-being, and we identify, where might your fixed mindset be? Maybe it's not finances, maybe it's social, or maybe it's a lot of the women that come in there like, I'm gonna be single forever, maybe it's a relationships, and so we got to talk back to it. Well, what are you doing? If you say, I'm not good at dating, and then you go out and you got a frown on your face and you're sitting in a corner and not talking to them, what does that do? Self-fulfilling prophecy. So we walk through different examples, and that usually helps people to see themselves, build that awareness, so that we can create a different mindset.
Absolutely. And I honestly feel like, it's hard to do that for ourselves, but I feel like we do it for our kids all the time. Like,
Don't you?
no, you're not gonna go, you are better than this, you got a better idea, we're gonna go out and do that. But it's hard to do that for yourself. And that's why, I love like resources like this and working with the coach, because they see things that you just cannot see in yourself.
We all have blind spots.
We all do. Yeah. And so a lot of your book, and you talk a lot in your book about positive psychology,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So first of all, you just look like you have a sunny disposition from like when you were born. So I was like, well, what came first, the positive psychology, or I feel like you're like this.
The smile first. The smile first.
Yeah. So you weave a lot of positive psychology throughout, and you call yourself a positive psychology practitioner.
Yeah.
So what was it about this field of study that attracted you to it? And why do you think it's important for Black women specifically?
Yeah. So back in 2015, when I went through my coaching program, the foundational parts of the coaching program was positive psychology. So they gave me like just very light touches of what it means. And for people who don't know what positive psychology is, it's the study of what allows human beings to thrive and flourish. And it's the science that focuses on your strengths and what's right with you. So traditional psychology focuses on what's wrong with you, and the other things. It's equally important, but it's like, but what happens once I get to neutral? What can I do to create more and to feel better? And so I remember saying, well, maybe I'll go get my master's in positive psychology. And I was like, I don't want that $60,000 debt. So I got guidance from someone in the community. They were like, what you want to do with it is just keep applying it to coaching. So you should go the applied learning path. And so I went into this program that was about 7 months. And I'm sitting in the classroom, and I'm the only Black woman there. I'm the only Black person in the class.
Wow.
And getting all of these tools, like about mindset, which I just talked about habit creation, about why people join religious organizations and communities, about why we're wired to connect, and all these things. And I'm literally having revelations at the end of each class. And I'm like, he told me this as a teenager, like, what if I had this information as a young Black woman?
Right.
Or if my mom had this information?
Right.
I just imagine that the gap would have closed quicker in terms of how I'm better able to take care of myself, see myself, and want to focus on flourishing and thriving and not just survival. I could have closed the gap quicker. So I was, well, that's what I'm gonna do. Ain't nobody teaching it right now. Ain't nobody teaching it. All my teachers is white and whatever. I love them. They nice. But I know a lot of times it's not the message, it's the messenger. And so I'm like, I know that Black people will want to Black women will want to hear from somebody that looks like them and that has used it, because I didn't just learn it. Part of the application was applying it to my own life, and I was seeing results. I was literally showing up differently in my relationships with my family, with my friends, and they noticed it. They're like, something different. Like you got something is rapping right for you. And I'm like, I've been learning this thing. And literally I was telling everybody that could listen about it. And then I was like, I literally am just going to keep teaching it in my coaching program. And I said, well, what if I didn't just do it with one-on-one coaching? What if I did it in like an event so I could touch more people with this information?
Right.
And so that's what made me launch the Happy Pop-Up, which is an event that takes positive psychology, makes it fun, relevant, and feel like an adult play date. And you're learning all these things in an event. And I was like, oh my God, this is fun. But events cost money. I said, well, what else can I do? Because this message is not away. Like, my desire to make sure that Black women feel authentically happy and free, wrong. And so I was like, I write a book about it. And from there, and just this idea of the self-efficacy. And that's something else I learned in positive psychology, is like the belief in myself and what I've been learning and practicing and teaching to women was so strong, because I had put it into practice, that I felt like, I know this works. I've seen it work for myself and for other women. So why not make sure that Black women around the world can access this?
Right.
And have to buy my coaching services. They can put it in their purse, their pocketbook, or in their ears because it's on Audible.
Because
right?
it's on Audible. Yeah. I mean, it's so important. I mean, one of the things you mentioned was authenticity, which I think that it's such a great word. You said authenticity and being free, which look, you speak in my language now, because freedom is all that I wanted. If I can't have financial freedom right now, I need to be mentally free, right?
Mentally free, personally free,
spiritually free,
yeah.
And authenticity, I love the focus on that, particularly for Black women, because I feel like people always want us to change. Like they always want us to change our hair or walk like this or wear this or be.
Yeah.
And so authenticity for us, it just means showing up as you are, right? And I feel like we need the tools of these books, because when we show up as we are, sometimes people want us to do something else, and we need something to go to, the tools. So I think, how do you see authenticity? How do you see that in your work and when you work with your clients? How do you help them reach a place of authenticity for themselves?
It's usually by thinking about who you were before the world told you who you weren't.
Ooh,
before you got into the workplace, before you went to college, like, who were you as a child, as a 9-year-old? Which is why I shared that example of me doing the talent show.
Yes.
It's Candy Rain.
Y'all get the book, because
I'm telling you. Because when I think about myself as a child, and that's the exercise we do, we visualize yourself as a child. What were you strongest at? Like, what were you passionate about? What were those things that made you light up as a child? And you can see glimmers of them as an adult, but they're all covered and packed down with expectations from other people, from work, from children, from spouses. So you don't even recognize yourself most of the time. So if you can literally look at yourself as a child and start there, and then it's that work of, well, what brought me joy? What would that look like in adulthood? So one of my character strengths is curiosity, and I've been curious since a child. And so how I fed it as a child is different, but as an adult, I'm always trying to go travel somewhere. Even if it's not travel, I'm like, there's a festival this weekend, let's go check it out. But curiosity is still something that was very present in my childhood. And so making sure I lean into that is a part of my authentic self.
Right.
So being able to recognize those things, think about who you were. Who was I before I put on all these titles and statuses and degrees? Who was I first?
Right. And even if you're not a curious person by nature, I mean, I feel like you should just be curious about yourself. That will lead you to figure out exactly who you are, exactly to tap into who you used to be. I don't know where I was, but I wrote this quote on my computer yesterday, and it kind of gels with what you're talking about, which is called follow your energy. Follow your energy. What lights you up? Pay attention to what makes you happy and what doesn't, what drains you. So I think that is such an important, lesson for women who are just trying to get back to themselves, right? After giving so much to everybody else.
And it's interesting you say that, because if it's not in the book, it's one of my coaching exercises that I usually do with my I couldn't put everything in it. They're like, girl, you got to but literally I do energy gains and drains, right?
Okay.
As a part of the self-awareness building, it's what are 10 things? And we start with the month, because life is big, right?
Right.
But it's this month, what were 10 things that really energized me, and writing that down. This month, what were 10 things that drained my energy, and writing that down. Sometimes we are able to say all the stuff that pissed us off and we don't think about, well, what actually brought me energy? So seeing those things side by side and saying, okay, what do I have control over?
Right.
And we actually have control over way more than we see, right? Than what meets the eye. So it's what do I have control over? If it's energy, if it's a drain, it's okay, well, how do I get less of that? Or how do I minimize that? Right. Or who do I need to support me? It could be a child, a spouse, whoever, or friends, who can me in this? Or how do I get more of the energizers in my life? So that's of like figuring out like my authenticity and what really lights me up, as you said. Like,
Yeah.
I just like that.
And one of the reasons I really liked the book and I wanted to have the hard copy of the book is because there I go, I started to, one of the things I started to do in the beginning of the year is journal. Like I wanted to make that a part of my like morning ritual. And the thing is, it's like you can journal about your day or what bothers you, but your journal can also just become a dumping ground for like the bad experiences that you have. And I'm not saying that that's not valid and that's not useful, but what I really like about the book is that you help people think and you help people, like you help me, I should say, do journal in a more effective way.
Intentional.
And in a more intentional. Thank you.
I too. I know what you meant. Feel what you meant. It's like it's intentional journaling.
It is. And you feel like you have it when you come out of it, you feel like you've actually accomplished something. And I just want to talk to the tired women, out there with kids and with family, just to encourage you to just take the time to do that for yourself, because it is so valuable what you will uncover, and you will come back, like you said, being able to give people so much more of yourself. They get, the best of you.
Yeah. And what's another commonality that I see with the women who come through my coaching program is this idea that I just need more time. I'm exhausted. I'm overwhelmed. I just need more time. And then let's say we do like just a time capsule of what happens in their day. And it's like, do you really need more time, or are you lacking some boundaries somewhere? Are you taking phone calls that you should probably reserve for the weekend? Are you overextending yourself to activities just because there's a people pleasing bone that you ain't got rid of yet? Right. So it's really taking a look at like what's really happening. And that goes back to self-awareness. Like it's so huge, like being aware of like what's really happening. What's my real picture? Yeah. That in itself is freedom, because it's like, I actually know what's happening. And this is why I'm tired. So what can I change? And focus on those small things, because you don't want to try to change everything at once. And I talk about that. Don't try to do everything at once, but like, what are the small things I could manage this week, this month, and then just compound those changes, and literally you'll see a big difference. Right. So when you, I guess one of the questions that I wanted to ask, it was actually about self-awareness that I really liked. It was the low and when you talked about the signs of low self-awareness. First of all, that was the first time I whipped out my pencil, because I never really thought about, how low self-awareness, like this. Because when you think about somebody who is not self-aware, you're like, oh, they're oblivious, they're, selfish. Those are the words that come to mind. But I thought that you had impulsivity, defensiveness, apathy, excessive nostalgia. I have never connected these things to low self-awareness. So, I mean, this is what I mean when I feel like, I feel like when I say you've done a good job of like bringing things to the surface that you wouldn't necessarily connect to your life. And I feel like when you identify some adjectives or some actions that people don't normally associate with it, they can trace that back and kind of figure out exactly what is, the reason that they are, acting in this way. So I thought that was super helpful. It's big. And it goes back to one of your questions you asked me earlier about like, why do Black women need this? It's because a lot of the things we haven't changed yet is because we don't have the language to change it yet, or the words, or the adjectives, or the even the thought to say, oh, I can change that, or I have the ability to change that. So a lot of it is just not knowing we have the power to do the thing, or not having the information to do the thing. I remember in one of my classes in the program, we were watching a documentary, and it was about it was about an all-boys school. There was all Black boys. And they were teaching them about character strengths, and character strengths is another component that you'll find in positive psychology research. And they all had the little boys take the strengths assessment, and they had them identify their top strengths, and they had to tell each other about the strengths, right? And so different days of the week, they would get the opportunity to describe their friends or tell each other how they're seeing their strengths in each other by the things they've seen them do in class or with their friends. And so it could be something like, he's very compassionate, he's this. So it's like, these little boys are learning language that a lot of adults don't even have to this day in their 40s. And so that was another like catalyst thought for me, like, oh my gosh, literally, we just sometimes don't even have the language to describe what we're feeling, even if it's positive. So imagine giving people the tools, the language to describe the things they're going through, or the practices to allow them to change what they're going through. It would be groundbreaking. And that's why it's so important for Black women to have this information. Because I was really looking at it like, oh my God, like, what if my nephews knew to say, I'm curious, or, you know, I love compassion, or I practice compassion, or responsibility, or courage, like that, just words and language that you otherwise wouldn't have access to.
Right. And it's kind of like, you know, when you think about happiness, you just throw words out there and without any real understanding of, you know, what it is. And it's like, oh, it's almost like going undiagnosed. Like you have, like, I'm feeling I'm defensive and I don't even know why and what that's related to. Right. Why am I defensive and why is that a part of me? So you know, one of the things that I wanted to ask about positive psychology, because, you know, it's kind of like happiness in a way where it's like on the, like, if you go a little bit this way, it could be a little bit, you know, toxic, or people can use it wrong. I think when you talk about positivity, right? Somebody will look at that and say like, oh yeah, I love being around positive people. Or somebody will say, positive people, is that real? That seems phony.
You're not happy.
Or you're not happy all the time. And I think there's that thing of like toxic positivity where you are, where you know, just say, oh yeah, things will get better, without really kind of addressing exactly what is causing you to be unhappy. How do you draw the parallels? How do you make sure that your positive psychology doesn't really tip into toxic positivity? I mean, you've been trained. It's the whole field of study. So I'm sure you've been trained, but how do you make sure that you're checking in with yourself to say, all right, I'm not feeding myself a bunch of bull crap here. I need to, you know.
I mean, well, the first thing is positive psychology encompasses, it's a lot of what it teaches is around making sure that you experience the full spectrum of emotions. That's the first thing. So we don't even get to toxic positivity because it's about experiencing the full spectrum of emotions and learning how to navigate them and working your way back. You know, so one of the things I talk about often in positive psychology when I'm teaching is I talk about the wellness spectrum. So on this end on the spectrum is premature death, right? On the left side. In the middle is neutral. And then on the far right is like thriving, flourishing, right? And so in positive psychology, we talk about the fact that sometimes you just want to get to neutral because you have these negative emotions that you're experiencing. And so maybe you just want to do a gratitude practice that week because you're not feeling good. You know, gratitude helps with, you know, upward spirals. Because, you know, people always talk about downward spirals, but like it could help you have an upward spiral and kind of get out of a funk. So there's never a place in positive psychology where there's only positivity.
Right.
The goal is like, how do I navigate all of the emotions? And I think with toxic positivity, people tend to just say, oh no, I don't want to experience no negative emotions. I'm eliminating all negative thoughts. I am not even leaning into painful emotions. And that is in itself unrealistic because life happens, real things happen in your life, death happens, family changes, whatever it is like you're going to feel these things. And so it's always this whole thing about, this is the perfect summation. When I first went to my program, they said the best way to describe positive psychology is giving yourself permission to be human.
Yeah.
So in that humanity, you have to understand that you're going to experience every emotion, but it's about, what do I do when I get those emotions? Do I stay there or do I try to do it an intentional activity to help myself navigate it better?
Right. Amazing. So I'm gonna ask you one more time. What do you want women to get out of this book? Why should they get this book? I mean, I said throughout this conversation while I thought it was so awesome, but
Yeah.
when you when you finished this book, what were you feeling when you finished it and you were ready to put it out there?
What was I feeling?
Yeah. Well, you're probably like,
yeah. I want this book. So I don't know if you're familiar with this book, but most people are, but you know the book The Alchemist, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
The Alchemist is like a rite of passage for a lot of people in terms of
Yes.
personal growth, right? I want this book to be a rite of passage for Black women everywhere.
Oh, I love that.
Like I want people
Yes.
to be like, I am ready to have a change in my life. I don't know where to start. And I want them to say, you should get Evolve and Why Black. Because
Yes.
that's what I did with The Alchemist for so many people. So I want it
Yeah.
to be like, I want it to feel like that. And I want it to be a book that is long standing and you can pick it up at any moment in life,
Mm-hmm.
use it. And for any moment in life, any decade you're in, it's one of those books that I wanted to have a legacy of just helping people grow.
Right.
And literally my thing is like authentically happy and free. Your whatever that looks like for you. I want Black women everywhere to feel free to create whatever life they want to create on their own terms. And I feel like this is the book for it. And I really want it to be given as gifts to graduates,
Yes.
to come into their own, whatever that is, transitions.
Mm-hmm.
I want it to be the gift
Right.
that friends give out.
I love it. Well, you've done an amazing job. I know people who read The Alchemist every year, every year.
I used to be one of those people.
Yeah, because when you read it, you learn something new. Every story, because it's like at every stage you're in, you read the same thing, but it doesn't quite click the same. So you end up getting something new out of it. And what I can, now that you say that, I'm like, I can see this because this is not something that you could just be like, oh, I'm a rush to, or you do want to revisit, or you do want to keep it by your nightstand and do that. So I think you've done an amazing job of, so far. I'm only about, I'm not all the way done, but I'm getting there.
Yeah. So, and honestly, that goes back to the title, because the thing about evolution is we are going to be so many versions of ourselves. So when you come back to some of this stuff, it's going to feel different. You're going to be going through different things. You're going to be thinking different things. And so that's why it's like, this book is going to be longstanding, because I might be a whole different person 10 years from now. And these exercises are going to hit different. My mindset is going to be different. So I want it to literally be the gift that keeps on giving, regardless of where you are, in whatever stage of life you're in.
Yeah. And I also want to give you props because you wrote it in a way that is relatable today, but also will not be dated. So
yeah.
So congratulations on doing that too, because it's not an easy thing to do. So where can people find you, Chianti? Can we find you? Where can we get the book? I got mine from Amazon, but where else is it?
The book is anywhere you like to purchase your book. So Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, and some of the independent bookstores have them, but for sure they're always on Amazon. Okay. Yeah. And Sounds True through my publisher, Sounds True. People can find me. I'm Chianti Lomax everywhere. I make it simple.
Very nice.
Chianti Lomax everywhere.
Awesome. And we'll have it tagged. And don't forget Audible. There's also an audio version, but I mean, I'm going to encourage people to get the book. Yeah. Because I'm like, because you need the book. Because how are you going to do the exercises? So
that is the thing. So I was listening to you at the top of the call when you were saying you do Audible. I'm like, I'm actually an Audible girly. But when I am into a book that I'm like, oh no, I need to get the physical copy. Like I do that all the time. So I knew when you said that, we were like, no, I got to get the physical book, because I do that all the time.
Yes, because you want to take notes. You want to stop and write. Like you can't do that with Audible. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm the same.
Thank you so much. Congratulations on your book. I hope that it is well received. Like I said, you've done an amazing job. And thank you so much for the conversation today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I love the conversation. It felt natural and good. So I loved it so much. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. And for everybody else, I will see you next time.